Most of you backpackers are thinking about insulations wrong. And today on this video, we're gonna cover how you're thinking about it wrong and a few other things. If you're someone who might be thinking, this might be stuff that I already know about, or if I've already got a layering system in place, make sure you stay tuned because there's actually some stuff, some insider information type stuff that I'm gonna be sharing with you on this video because it's news to me and we got it straight from a source that's been studying this stuff extensively. So without further ado, I'm Taysom Whitaker, I'm the founder here at Outdoor Vitals, and on this channel, we're talking about getting you outside more comfortably and more confidently. So if that's interesting to you, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification so we can notify you when we push out new videos. And without further ado, let's dive right in to how you're thinking about installations wrong. Out there online, I've heard way too many of you guys saying like you're in the down camp or I'm in the synthetic camp and there's no crossover. Some of you guys are saying like down is just superior in every way, or synthetic, is just so much more safe, or this, that, and the other. But the thing is, it's not black and white. And in this video, I want to make sure that you understand it's not black and white. And in each individual case scenario, you're going to want to analyze a few things before you make your selections. For starters, let's talk about the unique abilities of down. Obviously, down is known very, very widely for being extremely high warmth to weight. And still to this day, it's still the dominant player in this industry. There's all these different synthetics, including Loft-Tech, but we can't touch those higher tiers of down. So warmth to weight, packability is also a very unique ability of down. It packs down so tight and so small. Longevity, that's something we don't talk about a lot with down, but over the course of a long period of time and use and everything that goes in with that, down has extremely high longevity. All right, so let's talk about some of the cons with down. And this is where you're gonna be very, very interested to hear some insider information. You see, something that we haven't really thought a ton about is down degradation. I'm not talking about using it year after year after year. I'm talking about dirt and grime and even mold. Yeah, you heard that right. A lot of people don't think about it, but you can build up mold inside of your down sleeping bag. If you're not washing your down more regularly with safe down detergents, you can build up mold inside of your bag. Let's say you take for a second and on one trip you got really cold and you put your head in your bag and you're breathing inside your bag. What are you doing? You're introducing moisture into your bag. Or you're going for a big long trip and there's condensation every day and it's getting wet and it doesn't get properly dried out. You're gonna build micro amounts of mold, and when you're using 800, 900 fill power downs, that starts to degrade your down, meaning you're not getting a true 800 or 900 fill power out of that bag. How's that? That's pretty interesting, right? That was actually brought to us by Allied Feather on a recent call we were having doing some product development with them. So there's some of the unique abilities of down, some of the pros and cons. Obviously the other con that everyone talks about is just that down can fail, right, when it gets wet enough. So that's kind of a con of down. All right, so let's move into the camp of synthetics and what is its unique ability. Obviously it stays warm when it is wet. It stays lofted when it is wet. Also gonna hold up to that dirt and grime we just talked about a little bit better. So if you sweat in the piece or it just gets dirty over time, it's gonna stay more consistently warm. Longevity wise, the winner is down. Synthetics over time can slowly break down. The more they compress, the more they're stored compressed, and some of these things will start to have an effect on synthetics. Another pro though for synthetic is that we can get a specific synthetic for specific applications. Take for example our Loft-Tech jacket. That's a loose fill synthetic. It's something that we brought into this marketplace and it's done really well, but it's engineered for a specific type of use, which we try to put it to use in exactly that scenario, versus there's some other types of synthetics that are gonna be better suited to other aspects. All right, so we've gone over some of the unique abilities of down and synthetic. Let's dive into application specific things. This is really where the rubber is going to meet the road here. So diving right into that, the biggest thing that I'm considering is how much total insulation am I gonna be using? So that takes into consideration the amount of size. So a sleeping bag obviously uses a lot of insulation, or the thickness. So if I'm getting a 0-degree sleeping bag versus like a 45-degree sleeping bag, that's all the amount of insulation that needs to be used. Now, obviously down has that higher warmth to weight ratio. So you're gonna use a lot less down the colder or the warmer temperature piece that you're building. If I'm getting a 0-degree sleeping bag again, down is going to have major benefits weight-wise over a 0-degree synthetic product. The next thing that I really like to consider is this exposure to elements. That can mean inside the jacket or outside the jacket, right? A piece can get wet from inside of a jacket or wet from moisture on the outside of a jacket. So you think about, like, let's say a down sleeping bag isn't going to be used or exposed to those elements hardly ever, especially if you've got a good shelter system, you're taking care of it while you're packing it in, packing it out, you can pretty well protect that from the elements. Whereas a jacket, on the other hand, if you're wearing it while you're hiking, there's a chance that you could be getting wet from the outside. There's a chance, big chance, you're gonna be sweating while you're hiking. All these different things correlate into more exposure to the elements, which again, you're gonna be better off living in that synthetic world because dirt and grime and moisture and all those things are not going to affect it nearly as much. I mean, how many times do you take your jacket off and set it on a bush, or it ends up on the ground, or maybe you end up on the ground, you're kneeling down, you're sitting down, it's gonna get exposure to dirt and all these different elements, which are gonna start to affect that insulation over time. So these are all some really, really big factors that you're gonna want to consider when you go to pick your pieces. So let's dive right into maybe the camps that I'm sitting in for when I like one insulation over the other. All right, so for starters, let's talk about sleeping bags. Look at the size of this bag, right? And also the thickness of this bag. This thing is going to require a lot of insulation to be a 0-degree sleeping bag. Because of that, I'm going to lean more towards down. Yes, there is possibility of moisture getting into this and different things, but I'm gonna be trying to take care of this, limiting that exposure to the elements. I'm gonna be using pack liners in my bag so that if it rains or something like that, it's still protected. I don't use water bladders in my backpack specifically, so if you're curious about that, go click the link over here where I talk about why I don't use water bladders anymore. I also am gonna use quality tents and different things that are going to keep my products dry. Because this is gonna be dry, it's gonna have limited exposure to the elements, and because there's so much insulation required, I'm typically taking a down sleeping bag or top quilt. The lack of exposure to elements, the weight savings, all of that is going to lend to a much better application to use down in a sleeping bag. All right, let's say we're gonna talk about jackets for a second. You can see here, this is our regulator down jacket. You can see this is our Loft Tech jacket. You can see right here, this is a different jacket, which you may wanna stay tuned for. But I won't talk too much about this jacket today, even though I really, really want to. If you're not subscribed, again, good reason to be subscribed or be on our mailing list because there's more coming soon. Anyways, right here, you can actually see on the table some of the differences in loft, the differences in baffles and different things right here. When I'm going out and I'm selecting a piece for sake of convenience, let's label this as a coat, let's label this as a jacket, let's label this as a hoodie or something like that that's gonna be a lot lighter weight, like a fleece hoodie. There's different things out there in that mid-layer category. You can see this jacket's gonna be a lot warmer than this piece because this is built to be more of a coat. Something that's gonna be warmer, something that's gonna be warm when you're stagnant, not moving. We've opted to use down in this piece because of that weight to warmth ratio. Also, if you're sitting stagnant, you can also protect this a lot easier, whether you're sitting in your tent, whether you put your rain gear over the top of it, but you can't really hike in rain gear. So using down in a coat level, a warm layering piece makes perfect sense. Switching over to this piece, which is more of a jacket or sweater level of insulation, you are gonna be sometimes hiking in this piece. It is gonna be more exposed. You are gonna be using this when you're not sitting stagnant or able to protect it from rain or different things like that. And that's why an application using this Loft Tech insulation makes a ton of sense, right? Because it's synthetic. It can handle dirt and grime. It can handle moisture. It can handle some of these things, which makes it a lot better for more of an active piece or a piece that you're gonna be using while you're actively moving. So to compare and contrast this a little bit, it makes a lot more sense when less insulation is needed to stick with the synthetic, whereas when more insulation is needed to stick with down. But there are some pros and cons to this, right? We could take this down product and we could absolutely baffle it tighter and make more of like a down sweatshirt or a down hoodie or something like that. I don't know that that's the best application for this, because if you have a piece like that, you're typically being more active in it. So for me, where I sit, I'm typically leaning towards synthetic when there's less insulation required. It's a piece I'm more active in. So I wouldn't even really be opposed to using synthetic in a sleeping bag, but only in those higher temperature levels. Because if we were to make a synthetic sleeping bag at a 0-degree temperature rating, which by the way, down and synthetic that are both rated at 0 degrees are both a 0-degree bag. One is not warmer than the other. Kind of a random question we get asked on customer service sometimes. Anyways, if you're talking about a 0-degree sleeping bag in down, you're gonna save significant amounts of weight over a synthetic sleeping bag in that 0-degree level, sometimes as much as like a full pound or more. And that's very significant when you're an ultralight backpacker. And that's really why I hedge towards that down product, because it's gonna be significantly lighter. So now that you know some of these basics, you know some of the unique abilities, you know some of my preferences, I hope that you go back through your kit and go piece by piece and ask yourself those questions. You know, what's the exposure to the elements? How much of insulation is needed in this product to do its job? And if you go through your kit, your gear list just like that, and even trip by trip, I promise you're gonna build more confidence in your gear because they're gonna be very specifically driven by that trip's needs. You're also gonna feel like the product is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and any product that's been designed well should have a very purpose-driven application. So make sure you're applying your products the way that you need to in your own gear set. So if you're interested in checking out either of those jackets, go click up here. If you're interested in our channel, make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for tuning in. Leave your comments below and let us know, what camp are you in? Are you down or synthetic? I hope neither, and you share your specific application for each.